This is a story that feels ripped from a Hollywood thriller, but its roots are in the very real, very dangerous world of high-stakes deception. It's a cautionary tale that weaves together the ambition, tactics, and psychology of real-world cons into one unbelievable narrative. It's about how desperate ambition, combined with a deeply vulnerable target, could turn a luxury penthouse into a gilded cage of lies. By the end of her run, she had it all. A penthouse overlooking Central Park, a wardrobe worth more than a house, and the absolute trust of a reclusive millionaire. He saw her as his savior, the one person who finally broke through his isolated world. What he didn't know was that the woman he shared his life with didn't actually exist. Her entire identity, from her name to her past, was an elaborate lie, and the foundation of his perfect world was about to shatter. Every grand deception begins with a quiet, desperate dream. For Catherine "Cat" Thompson, that dream was born in a forgotten corner of Ohio. Her world was one of threadbare carpets and the lingering scent of industrial cleaning supplies. Days were spent on her hands and knees, scrubbing the floors of other people's successes as part of a local cleaning crew. The work was grueling, anonymous, and paid just enough to keep her trapped. But Cat was sharp, which made her circumstances feel even more suffocating. She had to become a student of human nature just to get by. From her vantage point on the floor, she observed the lives of the wealthy. She saw their casual relationship with money, their thoughtless security, and the subtle cues of power that separated their world from hers. She wasn't just cleaning their homes, she was studying them. The art on their walls, the books on their shelves, the half-finished conversations she'd overhear. Her nights were her real education. Instead of going out, she poured her meager earnings into online courses, not for degrees, but for knowledge. Art history, philosophy, economics, etiquette. She was devouring information that seemed utterly useless for a cleaning lady. But for Cat, it was ammunition. She was building an arsenal for a war she hadn't yet declared. She wasn't just learning about Monet, she was learning how to speak about him with the bored confidence of someone who grew up with his work in their family's summer home. This wasn't about pure greed, not at first. It was a burning resentment for the hand she'd been dealt, a deep-seated desire to be seen, to be valued, to transcend the invisibility cloak her life of menial labor had thrown over her. She didn't just want to have money, she wanted to be the kind of person who had money, the kind of person defined by their tastes, not by the brand of bleach they used. That simmering ambition finally boiled over on a Tuesday afternoon. While cleaning a lawyer's home, she found a discarded magazine profile on New York's most elusive billionaires. And there he was, Arthur Sinclair. The article painted a portrait of a man who was everything she was not, astronomically wealthy, powerful, and utterly alone. A tech prodigy who had retreated from the world after a brutal public lawsuit, he now lived in self-imposed exile in a triplex penthouse on Billionaire's Row. The article hinted he was a ghost in his own palace, starved for a genuine human connection. For anyone else, it was celebrity gossip. For Cat, it was a blueprint. She didn't see a billionaire, she saw a target. A lonely king in a glass castle, protected by security, but with a fatal vulnerability no alarm system could detect: his own profound isolation. That night, Cat Thompson made a decision. She packed a single suitcase, emptied her bank account, and bought a one-way bus ticket to New York City. She was done scrubbing floors. It was time to build a penthouse of her own, one lie at a time. Before there was a scam, there was a victim. And to understand how this was even possible, you have to understand Arthur Sinclair's world. From the outside, his life was fantasy. His home wasn't just an apartment, it was a private kingdom in the clouds, a triplex with 360-degree views from Central Park to the Atlantic. Italian marble floors, solid gold fixtures, a museum-quality art collection. But for Arthur, this palace was a prison. He was a man who built a digital empire on connection, yet he was one of the most disconnected people on the planet. A past betrayal by a co-founder had shattered his ability to trust. Relationships became transactions, and vulnerability became a liability. So he eliminated it. His world was a sterile, automated loop. A machine brewed his coffee. He communicated with his board through encrypted video calls. A private chef cooked his meals and left without a word. His only real companion was a senior greyhound named Brutus, a rescue who, like Arthur, seemed to carry the weight of a difficult past. Human contact was reduced to the bare minimum. He had insulated himself so thoroughly that he had become a ghost in his own life, haunting the hallways of his magnificent, empty home. This isolation was the key. While it protected him from the outside world, it also made him extraordinarily vulnerable. He was starved for something real, for a conversation that wasn't about stock performance. He had built walls of wealth so high that he couldn't see out and no one could see in. It was a perfect, hermetically sealed fortress, just waiting for someone to find the one unlocked door, the human heart. And into this sterile world stepped Catherine Thompson, armed with a mop and a plan. Her first move in New York was brilliant in its simplicity. She didn't try to crash a gala, she went for the service entrance. She learned that the city's most exclusive residences outsourced their cleaning to a handful of elite companies. After weeks of applying, she landed a job at Elysian Clean, a fictional name for one such firm known for its discretion. Her performance was flawless. She was diligent, quiet, and efficient, the perfect invisible employee. And she waited. For weeks, she cleaned other apartments in the same building, learning layouts, security protocols, and staff rhythms. Finally, the assignment she was angling for came through. A cleaner on the Sinclair Penthouse team retired, and Kat, with her spotless record, was chosen as the replacement. As she stepped into the service elevator, she felt a thrill of terrifying certainty. The floor mat was now inside the palace. The game had begun. Kat's plan was a masterpiece of psychological manipulation, executed in careful stages. Her first few weeks were a performance of perfect invisibility. She and the crew would enter while Arthur was sequestered in his office. They were ghosts who polished, vacuumed, and vanished. But Kat was doing more than cleaning. She was gathering intelligence. She noted the books on his nightstand, Stoic philosophy and inventor biographies, the sheet music for complex piano sonatas, the expensive but untouched art supplies, and most importantly, the worn dog collar belonging to Brutus. She understood that the only living creature Arthur Sinclair truly connected with was his aging dog. Her first move was subtle. One afternoon, she orchestrated a chance encounter. As the crew was leaving, she realized she'd left her paperback copy of Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, a book she knew he was reading, on a countertop. She timed her return to coincide with Arthur stepping out with Brutus. Feigning embarrassment, she clutched the book. "Mr. Sinclair, I am so sorry. I would have been lost without this." Arthur, who usually avoided eye contact, was taken aback. His gaze fell to the familiar book. "You're reading that?" he asked, surprised. "It helps keep things in perspective," she replied softly. "The world can be a loud place." It was the perfect line, an acknowledgement of his reality without being presumptuous. For the first time, Arthur saw a person, not a cleaner. He just nodded, but the seed was planted. From there, Kat began crafting her identity, Anna Reed. Anna was an art history student working her way through school after a falling out with her fictional, old-money family who disapproved of her ambitions. This backstory was brilliant. It explained her service role while signaling she belonged to his world.
It made her a fellow exile. Her next move was the broken glass incident. A water glass was accidentally shattered. Following protocol, the lead cleaner reported it, but Kat, as Anna, insisted on apologizing to Arthur directly. She found him in his study, her face a mask of contrition. "Mr. Sinclair, I am so sorry. I would have been lost without this." Arthur, who usually wouldn't have noticed the glass's absence for years, was struck by her earnestness. "Don't be ridiculous. It's a glass." "No, it's not," she insisted, looking him in the eye. "It's about respect. My family, well, we had different ideas about what's important. I'm trying to be better than that." And there it was. She'd introduced her backstory and framed herself as a person of principle. Intrigued, he asked about her studies. The conversation that followed was the first real one he'd had with a stranger in years. She spoke passionately about German expressionism, a subject she knew he loved from the art on his walls. She had done her homework. The dynamic shifted. Brief encounters became routine. He started emerging from his office when she was there to talk about art, books, and the city. She was a breath of fresh air. The final phase was her masterpiece. She fabricated a crisis. One afternoon, she arrived looking visibly distressed. When Arthur asked what was wrong, she broke down, spinning a tale of a thieving roommate and an imminent eviction, using details of betrayal that mirrored his own past trauma. Arthur's protective instincts roared to life. He saw a younger, more vulnerable version of himself. The solution, to him, was obvious. "That's unacceptable. The guest suite on the 71st floor is empty. Stay there. Stay as long as you need." Kat, as Anna, put on a performance of tearful, reluctant gratitude. She couldn't possibly accept. It was too much. But he insisted. For him, it felt noble. For her, it was checkmate. She moved in that night. The cleaner was now a resident. She had gone from the floor mat to a guest suite overlooking Central Park. She hadn't just fooled a millionaire. She'd made him believe that rescuing her was his own idea. This is the moment the con pivoted. Anna was no longer an outsider. She was on the inside, with a level of access few had ever achieved. But this was also where the stakes became astronomically higher. How do you maintain a lie this big when you're living in it 24/7? What do you think was the one crucial mistake that would bring this whole house of cards crashing down? Let us know in the comments. Living in the penthouse transformed the con into an all-consuming performance. Anna Reed was no longer a character. It was who Catherine had to be every waking moment. The guest suite was palatial, but it was a cage. Every word and gesture had to be consistent with the identity she'd built. Her relationship with Arthur deepened. He joined him for his solitary dinners, filling the room with conversation. He coaxed him out onto the terrace to watch the sunset. She was carefully breathing life back into the ghost of Billionaire's Row. He was falling in love, not just with Anna, but with the version of himself that existed when she was around. The financial con started small. Arthur gave her a supplementary credit card for your art supplies, books, anything you need to feel comfortable. At first, her purchases were clever, reinforcing her persona. Rare art books, tickets to obscure galleries, and elegant, understated designer clothing. But the temptation was immense. For a woman who had counted every penny, the absence of limits was a powerful drug. The small purchases gave way to larger ones. A $5,000 handbag, a $10,000 watch. The spending became less about the con and more about enjoying its fruits. Then came her most audacious move. She invented a new crisis, weaving a story about her estranged family's historic vineyard being on the verge of collapse. With a short-term infusion of $2 million, she claimed she could save her family's legacy. It was a story designed to hook Arthur, heritage, beauty, and a fight against callous financiers. She even forged financial statements and default notices, a classic move for high-level fraudsters creating a believable paper trail to back up a fiction. Arthur, completely under her spell, didn't hesitate. He saw a noble venture, a chance to play the hero once more. He instructed his wealth manager, a meticulous man named David Chen, to wire the funds to an LLC she had created. For Anna, watching that transaction confirm was the ultimate victory. She had siphoned millions from one of the richest men in the world. She wasn't just living in the penthouse, she was liquidating it. But this success contained the seed of her downfall. The transaction was too large and too far outside Arthur Sinclair's established patterns. For years, David Chen had managed Arthur's portfolio with one directive: preserve capital and avoid risk. Arthur's personal spending was minimal. This wire transfer to an unknown LLC was a blaring siren. Chen's job was to protect his client. The request was honored, but it triggered a quiet internal review. He ran a search on the LLC Anna had created. It was a shell company, registered just weeks prior, with no assets and no history. The story of generations-old vineyard didn't align with a brand-new, empty LLC. The fatal flaw wasn't a slip of the tongue. It was a single line on a bank statement, a number that didn't add up, noticed by the one man whose job it was to make sure they always did. The investigation had begun.
David Chen was not a private investigator, but he was methodical. He approached the problem as a financial discrepancy. His first step was discreet, a background check on Anna Reed, using the information she'd provided for the credit card. The results were baffling. The Social Security number belonged to a deceased person. There was no credit history, no educational records from Hunter College, no driver's license. Anna Reed didn't exist. Chen knew he couldn't confront Arthur without concrete proof, so he widened his search to the only verifiable fact he had: she had worked for Elysian Clean. Under the guise of a routine security audit, he requested the employment files for everyone who had serviced the penthouse, and there she was. Her name wasn't Anna Reed, it was Catherine Thompson. The photo matched, but the biography was starkly different. A low-income apartment in Queens, a string of cleaning jobs in Ohio, no college, no Connecticut family, no heiress. Chen now had both ends of the story. The space in between was a chasm of fraud. He cross-referenced the credit card spending and saw payments to online services that specialized in creating fake documents. He saw the wire transfer to the shell company she controlled. The final piece fell into place when a private investigator in Ohio sent back a photo of Kat's bewildered parents in front of their modest home. They had no vineyard. They thought their daughter was still a cleaner. Armed with an inch-thick file, David Chen made the call. The confrontation was quiet and brutal. In the same study where he'd first been charmed by her, Chen laid out the evidence. He started with the credit card statements, then the shell company, and finally he slid Catherine Thompson's employment ID photo across the desk. Arthur stared at it. "Who is this?" "That," Chen said softly, "is the woman you know as Anna Reed." He then walked Arthur through the entire timeline: the fabricated identity, the lies, the wire transfer. The truth, laid bare in black and white, was undeniable. Every shared laugh, every intimate moment was recontextualized as a strategic move in a long con. The sense of betrayal was absolute. He didn't explode, he went cold. The warmth Anna had brought into his life was extinguished, replaced by the familiar icy shield of his old self. He picked up his phone and called security. "There is an unauthorized person in my home. Please come to my study and escort her out. She is not to take anything with her." He found Kat in the library reading one of the art books she'd bought with his money. She looked up and smiled, a smile that now looked predatory. "Arthur," she began, "I was just thinking." He cut her off, his voice devoid of all emotion. "Who is Catherine Thompson?" The color drained from her face. The performance was over. In that moment, the world of Anna Reed evaporated, leaving only Kat from Ohio, exposed and trapped. She tried to speak, but there were no words left. The security guards appeared in the doorway. The game was up. As they escorted the stunned Kat to the elevator, she passed a mirror. The reflection that stared back was no longer the sophisticated Anna Reed, but the ghost of the girl from the floor mat who had flown too close to the sun. Conclusion: the echo in the penthouse. The aftermath was swift. Catherine Thompson was arrested, and the penthouse grifter became an immediate media sensation. The prosecution painted her as a cold, calculating predator.
Her defense tried to portray her as a victim of a system that left her no other options. The jury was not swayed. They saw the forged documents, the shell company, and the siphoned millions. Kat was found guilty of grand larceny, identity theft, and fraud. The judge delivered a sentence of 4 to 12 years in state prison, noting that her crime was not just financial, but a profound violation of human trust. While her methods were a deeply personal invasion, unlike the institutional targets of scammers like Anna Sorokin, the psychological blueprint was chillingly familiar. Catherine Thompson traded her penthouse prison for a concrete one. After serving her time, she disappeared back into the anonymity she had once fought so hard to escape, now labeled a convicted felon. And what of Arthur Sinclair? The con didn't just cost him millions, it cost him his second chance at trust. The walls he had so carefully built, the ones Anna had so expertly dismantled, were rebuilt higher and thicker than ever. He sold the penthouse, unable to live with the ghosts of the lies that haunted its rooms. He had reached out for a human connection and had been horribly burned. The story of Kat and Arthur is a chilling cautionary tale about the magnetic pull of wealth and the dangerous allure of a life unlived. It reveals how loneliness can become a liability and how the things we use to protect ourselves, wealth, privacy, and isolation, can become the keys to our own cages. Kat succeeded for a time, but the person she ultimately fooled the most was herself, believing a penthouse and a new name could fill the void inside her. It leaves us with an unsettling question. In a world where identities are curated and life is performed online, how well do we truly know anyone, and what illusions are we willing to believe just to feel a little less alone? Final CTA. The psychology behind scams like this is endlessly fascinating. What do you think was Kat's primary motivation? Greed, resentment, or something else entirely? Share your thoughts below. And if you found this story compelling, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the world's most incredible deceptions. Thanks for watching.